Now, for those of you who don't know me, I want to give you just a little introduction to my story. How I got involved in this kind of work is, I mean, as hopefully you know, I'm actually a physician. And when I graduated, I actually wanted to be an anesthetist and became an anesthetist or an anesthesiologist, depending where you're from. And I just wanted to put people to sleep. I mean, people thought that was a bit odd, but I wanted to put people to sleep, not like a vet does. Mine woke up, but I just thought it was a great thing. But it was, you know, I was a Christian, and as some of you would know, you've heard this story, I wanted to do God's will. And so I figured that I wanted to find out what was God's will for my career path. And anesthesia was clearly the most godly of all the medical specialties. I mean, you probably weren't aware of that, but it is, because what was God's first medical act? Well, he put Adam to sleep, right? So that was clearly God's primary interest in medicine. So I knew it was God's will. Also, too, being an anesthetist is the most like being in the public ministry, actually, for the same reason, actually. And so I just knew it was the right thing for me. But the other great thing about anesthesia is it's all about control of other people. Because in anesthesia, you control their blood pressure, heart rate, everything, you know, their breathing, you control everything about them. And so that's why it just really appealed to me, because I was a control freak back then. And you know, in anesthesia, everyone does what they're told. The drugs work immediately, like it's a control thing. But the big problem was here, where I was working in this little in a small hospital here where I live. We only did surgery in the morning. So in the afternoons, all the anesthetists became GPs, and so that was really awkward for me, because general practice is like the opposite of anesthesia, because in general practice, you have no control over anything. Nobody does what they're told. The drugs take forever to work. So it was very awkward for me to be a GP. Also, too, in anesthesia, you only have to listen to people for more than 10 seconds, you know, just the time it takes to empty the syringe, and then they're quiet. But in general practice, you have to keep listening. And after 10 seconds, you know, I start to drift, unless they're having trouble sleeping, and then I can help them out. Oops. There we go. I'm back. And so general practice was awkward for me. But you know what the most awkward thing about general practice was? That people came to see me with a problem I didn't know anything about and had no training in. And that they were coming to see me with problems with their feelings and their moods. I didn't know anything about that, because the school I went to, the medical school I graduated from, you had to have a personality extraction to graduate. So I had no personality, I had no emotions. I was just a machine trained to treat machines. And so it was really awkward. So I didn't know what to do. And what was even more awkward was most of these people were Christians. I was a Christian doctor. I attracted a Christian population. So I had all these Christians coming to see me with mental health problems, emotional problems, problems with their feelings. So I didn't know what to do. And so I said to them, I said, well, why are you talking to me? Why aren't you talking to someone in your faith community or in your church? And they said, oh, I'm too ashamed. They said, I'm the only one with this problem in the church, so I don't want to tell anyone. And I thought, you know, I'm seeing so many people from the church. I said, well, just have a seat in the waiting room, and you'll see everyone else from your church here in the next 30 minutes, all with the same problem. So you're not the only one at all. But another lady just said, she said, I mentioned it to someone at the church. They didn't know what to tell me. And this lady actually said to me, so I'm stuck with you. So, because they can't help me. So it was really awkward. So then I took a real interest in mental health. And so I started to try to help Christians sort of sort through this, because they didn't know who to trust. And so I started working, and I started trying to help people with mood disorders, depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder. And much to my astonishment, they started getting better. And then word got around, and people came from all over North America, and it took over my life. So I gave up anesthesia, I gave up general practice, and then I had a mental health clinic for about 25 years. But so I became really good at understanding the medical treatment of mood disorders and who needs medicines for depression, things like that. And then a few years after I got started in this clinic, then I had a very strange experience. I admitted a person to the hospital with depression, and during one of my hospital round interviews, a voice comes out of her and says, leave her alone, she's ours. Well, I mean, what do you do with that? So I had no training in that. And so then, you know, that was a hair-raising experience, literally. And so then I realized that there's a spiritual side to mental health and emotional health. And so I had to learn about spiritual and medical. So I thought I was balanced. But then a few years after that, Kathy and I have a marriage crisis. And Kathy falls apart, I fall apart. We have to go and see a counselor. And he taught us about healing of the heart. Because he said, you guys don't need better communication skills. You need to have your heart healed. And so that was so then we learned so much about healing of the heart, and it saved our marriage. And so then we figured that we can't be the only couple with this problem. So we just started teaching it. So we've been traveling around the world teaching these seminars for a long time and helping people understand how to be transformed mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. But of course, now we're not traveling at all. And so that's why we're online. And so we've moved our entire ministry online. And so what we want to do now is I want to share my screen because I wanted to show you some PowerPoint, okay? And so if you just wait for a moment, I'm going to turn on the slides. And I hope you can see that. Can you see that, Kathy? Mm-hmm. Good. And then you should be able to see me in a little box, and you should still be able to see the chat box. And while I'm talking, you can start asking questions. I won't be answering them until at the end, but Kathy will keep track of them, and so we can talk about it. So, so through this, when the pandemic broke out, I could see that it was affecting people emotionally and spiritually and medically and psychiatrically. And so it really interested me as to what's going on here with the pandemic and how is it clobbering people to such an intense degree. And so that's why I've been talking about it in all of our weekly videos, and that's why we're doing this video. So as I mentioned, our whole ministry now is online. So I have a website, drgrantmullen.com. And there's loads of free resources there on how to do self-assessments of how you're doing mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. Also, too, we put out a free video every Wednesday on how to live a transformed life and be transformed. And so that's free. All you do is fill in the subscription form that's on the website. And so we'll be happy to send that to you every week. And so our whole interest is in personal transformation. So let's talk about how the pandemic is affecting us. I mean, you've been writing down all the things that you've noticed, and I told you how I've been feeling. Kathy's been feeling a lot of changes from the pandemic, even more than I have. So let's talk about what are the things that are happening to all of us right around the world as a result of the pandemic. So here's just some of the damage that I've noticed. And these are from studies that I've come across. Half of Canadians, this is just was just done in middle of May, half of Canadians said their mental health had worsened during the pandemic. And I'm sure many of you put that into your comments. And then 44% of Canadians are worried. Like there's a whole lot to worry about, not only getting infected, but their finances, their investments, their family, and there's just so much. I mean, you worry about going to the grocery store, okay? 80% are not optimistic. I mean, that's a pretty broad stroke. Now, how many of, and also this is from the UK, 70% of people in the UK were scared to leave their homes. Well, for good reason. We've all been warned that if any contact with a breathing human is a threat. So what do we want to I'm going to write down a whole bunch of symptoms of pandemic brain. And as I read them, I want you to type into your chat box just either yes or a tick mark or a thumbs up. So it's like a little poll, okay? So as I read each one, I want you to make some indication of, have you felt this, okay? So the first one is, do you feel uneasy and you're not sure why? It's just like, there's something wrong, but I don't really know what it is. It doesn't feel right. Or do you feel unmotivated and bored even when there's lots to do? Okay, I mean, you've got a big job list, but like I just can't be bothered, and you can't go anywhere. And you feel unfocused. Your concentration is worsening. And then frustrated. I have lots of this. Frustrated. There's so many restrictions. I mean, you can't go on holidays, you can't travel, you can't go anything. For so long, you could only go to the grocery store and the pharmacy. Okay, and then confusion. there is so much confusion because people don't know who to trust. Because our leaders, they've never been this way before. I mean, they're winging it. And so there's a lot of skepticism and suspicion about leaders. That's why there's so many conspiracy theories, because we've never walked this way before. And then this whole sense of constant vigilance, or what it's, in medicine we call it hyperarousal. In other words, you're just always sort of on the lookout for, where's that virus coming from? Okay, or is someone breathing too close to me? And what can I do? What can't I do? What are the rules, and have they changed this week? So there's this invisible threat. So that's really annoying. And then worry. What activities are safe? How many times do I need to wash my hands? And how much cleanser is enough? But here's a big one. I've lost control of my life. I've lost control of my life because you can't do anything you want like you used to. And then we have no idea when it'll be over. And will there be a second wave? So this is all very unsettling because we've never had to deal with this before. And so, yeah, I can see that the polling here is very active. Oh yeah, and about worrying about your job too. Someone just mentioned that. You're absolutely right. Now here's something. This was written to me just a day or so ago. In fact, you may even be at the seminar. That she wrote to me. She said, "I distance visited. Distance visiting. That's a whole new expression. I distance visited my son's family and dropped off an item. They made me sit off in a corner and put the item on a distant table, and then we could talk." So they were distancing correctly. In reflection, as I drove home, I felt if I had the biblical equivalent of leprosy, unclean, untouchable, unwanted. And then her concluding word was, have any of you agreed with this? I ache for the hugs. Because we've sure noticed that around here, that our kids, the people around here, ache for hugs, human contact, because we're not allowed to do that. And here's a new condition, which I hope you're not developing right now as we speak. And I didn't know about this until I read about it. It's called Zoom fatigue, because Zoom is that's the primary way now that we contact other humans, and it's tiring. This is how we do business, so that whether you're at work or at home, you're always on Zoom, and you just can't let go of it. And we're tired of smiling all the time. We're tired of having everybody looking at us all the time and having to make constant eye contact. This normally when you're at a meeting, you can look off, drift off, but now on Zoom, you have to pay attention. So that's a whole new condition, okay? But basically, this is the bottom line. We've all lost something. We're grieving. We've all lost something, and for many of us, we've lost a whole lot of things, like we've been mentioning. And so we're actually grieving, and that's why we feel kind of unsettled, because we say there's something wrong, but I'm not sick. And so that's why it's so confusing. So what can we do about it? Okay, that's really why we're here. Okay, now here's something really important to know, and this is what I've spotted with the pandemic settling on us mentally and emotionally. It's this: negative thinking is the playground of Satan. He loves negative thinking. It gives him so much to work with. You see, he just loves to magnify and focus your attention on negative things, because he wants to drive a wedge between you and God. He wants to diminish your trust in God. He wants to pull you down. And so the pandemic is his playground, because there's so much negativity, uncertainty, and fear. He's having a great time because he can just pound that into your head. And so this is why we have a problem now internationally, and then it's made so much worse because there's darkness pushing it down into our heads more intensely. So that's really annoying. So what do we do about this? Well, we have to change how we think, because this is all a thinking problem. Okay, and so this is clearly a thinking problem. So the only way we can get out of this is by changing how we think. Hope I'm not muted. Okay, good. All right, so that's an easy thing to say, change how you think. Okay.
Someone's asked if there's going to be a copy of the slides.
Well, yes, there's actually going to be a recording of the whole event, and you'll all get a link probably tomorrow. Okay, so you'll have the slides, the audio, everything. I don't know if we'll have the chat box, but everything else is recorded. Okay, and so it's easy to say change how you think, but how do you do that? You can't just go, okay, I'm not going to think about the pandemic anymore. Like, how long is that going to last for? Okay, so the question is, How do we do it? And that's why we're here tonight, is you want a solution. Okay? So the answer is Romans 12:2. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. All right, so that settles it. So just go and do that. Now, I heard this verse quoted many times as I was growing up in the church, and they just said, go and do it. But they never told me how to do it. So I just thought, read the Bible and pray more. But they didn't tell me what to read, what to pray. So what do you do when you try and it doesn't work? You give up. So I remember growing up, I thought, okay, renew my mind, think different thing. I'm never going to think that way ever again. Well, 10 seconds later, it didn't last. Okay, so I want to help give you some tools so that you actually can know how to be transformed and how to renew your mind. Okay, so you need 2 strategies for this pandemic issue. You need 2 strategies. Okay, so you need an immediate strategy and a long-term strategy. So you need an immediate strategy to put the fire out and a long-term strategy to prevent this from happening again, mentally, emotionally. So you don't want to be vulnerable anymore to what happened, okay? So here's your immediate strategy. You have to change your perspective, okay? You have to change your perspective. And you have to change from a ground level. So you see, ground level is you're focused on the immediate. And everything's terrible, and I've got all these losses and the pandemic, and I might get sick, and I'm losing my job, and all these awful things. Satan wants you to focus on what's right in front of you so you can get really down, depressed, and anxious and sad, okay? So he wants you to keep focusing down. So you need to change from a horizontal, ground level perspective to high level thinking, which is God's perspective. Now remember, God's perspective is extremely different because he wasn't surprised by the pandemic. He's got your best interests at heart. He's got something wonderful for you through this pandemic, actually. I mean, if you're focused on the ground level, you're not going to see it. But if you switch to his level, you'll say, okay, it's awkward, it's inconvenient, it's unpleasant, but he's got something for me because he knew I would be in this situation. But how do you change to God's level? Because the problem in front of you is pretty intense, and it's sort of, the way I look at it is, it's loud. Okay, Satan's voice is loud because he's saying, no, you can't be hopeful and optimistic or happy. Look at the mess you're in. Okay, so he wants to keep you focused downwards. And God says, no, I want you to look at it my way because you're my child. Okay, so how do you do that? So here are the steps in an emergency like we're in now to start taking God's perspective. Okay, so but how do we do that? First step is to worship. Okay, and the reason is worship brings the presence of God into your situation. Worship takes you into the presence of God. And the best thing about worship is it's demon repellent, that they can't stand to be around worshipers. Now you say, how do we worship? I can't break into song when I'm at work. All right, then if you're at home, and of course most of us are stuck at home, most of us can't go to work, you put worship music on quietly in the background. You don't have to be singing with it. It's just there. It's creating an atmosphere. And if you can't do that, then you just worship in your mind. And so, or in your vehicle, in your commuting, because worship, just remember God promised if you draw close to him, he will draw close to you. So worship can clear the spiritual atmosphere around you, even when the situation is annoying, okay? And so you start with that. And so chains come off, the demonic oppression gets less when you worship, okay? Then, to get God's perspective, you need to be talking to him, and more important than talking at him is hearing his voice back to you, telling you his perspective. And the easiest way to picture that is picture yourself sitting on Jesus' lap or sitting very close to him. Or some people, they like to go for a walk with him in their favorite place in their imagination. But when you're worshiping and picturing yourself close to Jesus, you can say to Jesus, Jesus, what do you want me to know about the inconvenience or the pandemic that I'm facing right now? What do you want me to know about the anxiety I'm feeling or the frustration I'm feeling or the disappointment? What do you want me to know about all the things I've had to cancel? That's a bit more my perspective. And so when you're in the presence of God, it's easier to talk to him and hear his voice because there's less distraction from darkness. Okay. And so that is such a valuable and a fast, like that's an emergency quick way to change your perspective, because Jesus wants to tell you his perspective. Remember, he doesn't get upset about anything. He's not worried, and his calming voice will change your perspective and change your mood and aspect of it. And so he wants to use this pandemic to bring you closer to him, because he doesn't want you to stay focused on the negatives. He wants, and because the negatives, I mean, there's nothing appealing right now about the current situation. So he wants you to say, okay, I'm going to turn my focus to you and choose to draw close to him, because there's nothing really attractive down here at the moment to distract you. Okay. And so the safest place for you to be during the pandemic is on his lap. Okay. Just keep that in mind. Okay. So go into his presence through worship every time you feel stressed or frustrated or bugged in any way about the pandemic. It's just the easiest thing, the fastest thing to do in an emergency. Okay. Now, I realize that many of you are unfamiliar with how to hear God's voice, because Kathy and I, no one ever taught us how to do it. So at the end of this session, I'll actually tell you that we can actually help you do that. We can help you learn to hear God's voice. Okay. So that's the quick short-term solution. But I want you to have a long-term solution so that you don't find yourself spiraling down these holes ever again. Okay. So let me outline a longer-term solution so that you can renew your mind and change how you think. Okay. So this is Romans 12:2 again, but long-term. So this is a more lasting result that you can live with. Okay. So here's an easy model to understand this, because I want to close the doors on your vulnerability so you don't end up in this situation again. Think of it that way. We want to close access points so that Satan can't take advantage of it. So there are three parts to humans. The Bible talks about body, soul, and spirit, but it's really body, personality. Soul and personality are the same thing. Body, personality, and spirit. And each of these three parts has a really big influence on how you think, feel, and relate to other people. Okay? And you can have a malfunction in any of these three areas that can, of course, affect how you think, feel, and relate to other people. And so these malfunctions in the physical realm, you can have a mental health problem, because that's a physical malfunction that interferes with everything. And then, of course, in the spirit realm, Satan wants to attack your mind. He wants to put his thoughts into your mind, because he knows, especially right now with the pandemic, how easy that is, because he knows if you can pay attention to his thoughts, it'll change your behavior. And then in the area of your personality is shaped by all the events of your past, and then the conclusions you made about those events, which are part of your past wounding, and that's stored in your emotional baggage. So the thing about the pandemic is it clobbers all three of these areas, direct hit. So in the physical realm, of course, it can make you physically sick from the virus. But there's so much evidence that the stress of the pandemic is making depression and anxiety and mood disorders worse, because I've talked to people who work in hospitals. They're getting so many admissions of people who their moods are dropping. Because it's very hard to see their doctors to get their medications adjusted, so that their symptoms are getting worse and worse and worse because they're not getting medical attention, because it's so hard to do that, or the stress is overwhelming them. So this is a very difficult time. Also, too, the social isolation. They're cut off from all their support groups. Zoom is the same in that sense. So it's very hard on them. And then, of course, in the darkness, Satan has so much to work with the pandemic. So he just keeps pounding people and so that's been heightened because Satan has so much to work with. But then people's past wounding is accelerating because they're stressed. And when they're stressed, all the angst from their past and all the unresolved issues from the past get magnified, and their behavior gets magnified. Also, too, they're stuck at home, so people get very short-tempered and irritable. So the pandemic has really clobbered these three areas. So if you want to prevent closed access points, you have to deal with all of these three areas to close that door. Okay, so I want to explain to you how do you do that. And the good news is God is waiting to help you in all three areas. Because it's just you can't do it by yourself. It's too difficult. And so God's waiting to help you if you let him. So he's waiting for your permission. Okay, and it's head knowledge won't change it. Personal effort won't change it. But if you partner with God, you can be changed. Okay, so if you're going to be successful in closing these 3 access points, then you have to assess yourself. So you have to actually assess yourself, see where your vulnerabilities are. So the first is, how's your mental health? So do you have any problem with depression, anxiety, or mood swings? And so this is just an illustration that mood disorders are real and legitimate medical problems, but they're invisible. You can't see what a person's carrying around. And so we have a self-assessment tool on my website, drgrantmullen.com. If you go into the resources page, there's a self-assessment tool there under depression, anxiety, and mood swings. So you can actually look at the checklist of symptoms, compare it to yourself, and see if you need medical treatment or if your medicines need adjusting if you still have the symptoms on that list. And so we even have a prayer that Kathy and I put together for the healing of mood disorders. And if you'd like that, just email us directly and we'll send it to you. Okay. So now in the spirit realm, if you want to close that access point, then you need to know how to use your spiritual authority, because when Satan is afraid of any Christian who knows how to use their spiritual authority. And so you need to know how to use it, because then he will run. And so this picture illustrates the power of worship. Remember I told you, worship is demon repellent. They can't stand to be around worshipers. And so I like to think that when you worship, this is what happens in the spirit realm, what that picture depicts. And remember, if you resist him with authority, he will flee. That's what the Bible says. Okay, so the last thing he wants you to do is resist, because then he has to run. So I'm teaching you how to resist, and start with worship and then crawl up onto Jesus' lap. Now, but in the area of your personality, we all have emotional baggage. And so your emotional baggage is where you've stored your memories, the wounds, and the conclusions you made about those events. And your baggage is a very active, busy place, and it's always attacking you. And the pandemic has made this so much worse. It's made you so vulnerable because you're feeling stressed and easily overwhelmed. So Satan says, great, let's just take the junk out of your baggage, remind you what a loser you are, and that nobody likes you, and you'll never amount to anything, and God's left you, and he doesn't care about you anymore, and this is punishment from God. So the more baggage and the more painful your past, the more Satan has to work with. And so if you want to close this vulnerability, then you need to allow God to heal your heart and remove the baggage, okay? Because Jesus wants to take your baggage. He came to take away your sins and your baggage. And so that's the wonderful thing, that you don't have to continue living like this. So if you allow Jesus to help you in all 3 areas that I've just described, you will think, feel, and relate to others differently, and you won't be so easily overwhelmed by circumstances, because you will then have changed your view from ground level to God's level. Okay, so but all these steps are ways that you can be transformed and renew your mind. So you will be transformed when you have renewed your mind. And so these are what I've been describing are the ways to renew your mind by closing access points and changing your perspective. Okay, now that's going to help you do that. So the question is, would you like to achieve that now? Okay, that's really the question, is would you like to do something about that right now? Okay, so you just let me know if I have to unmute. Okay, so my question is, do you want to do something about that right now? And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, 1, that's impossible. Or 2, I've already tried that, it doesn't work. Okay, or I've already read the books, I've already gone to seminars like ours, and it didn't work. Okay, and so what I want you to imagine is that it really can help. It really can happen, because it's God's will. And if it's God's will, then he's made provision that it really can happen. And you may be just thinking, it's too hard, I can't do it on my own. Well, of course you can't do it on your own. You need divine help. You couldn't save yourself. You needed God to bring you into the kingdom. And so you can't set yourself free either. You need God's help. And so that's why we're doing this evening, so I can direct you and steer you. So there is a pathway forward. So you don't have to be stuck Okay. And so we can actually help you reach these goals. This is what Kathy and I are here for. Like, this is why our whole ministry exists, is because we were floundering and someone helped us. And so then ever since, we've been thinking, how can we help others? So everything we've created on our website, all our seminars, everything is to help people do exactly what I've been describing. So for 25 years, we've been teaching weekend seminars for personal transformation. Well, of course, we can't do any of that now, but we often got a complaint about our seminars. You know, we thought they were so absolutely wonderful and life-changing because we enjoyed them, but we actually got a complaint. And the most common complaint was, there's too much information and it's got given to us too fast. And so often they said it's like drinking out of a fire hose. Well, that's because we're trying to pack as much as we can into one weekend, because then we fly out. Well, the problem with that is people don't have time to process it. And they have no way of following up, like, what do I do now after the seminar? And they would, as they were listening to us, they would, God would speak to them about a point, they would start to write it down, and then they'd miss all the next points because they're busy thinking about that one, and then they've missed part of the event. So it was really frustrating for them. And so we thought, we have to change how we're presenting so that more people can get a lasting benefit, because just head knowledge doesn't change anybody. So, I mean, we can talk at someone, they'll say, oh yeah, right, I could write an exam on this, I understand what they're saying, but they haven't changed. And so we had to come up with another method so that people could actually grasp it. And so what we've come up with is that we found a way so that we can go much more slowly at a much lower cost and have much greater effectiveness. And that is the Free Your Mind program. And so this is fairly, we started it 6 months ago. And so it's a step-by-step guide to taking back control of your internal world. But what makes this so different is that you go at your own speed. And so we've taken everything that we talk about, everything that we teach, and we teach it now in short weekly videos that you get every week. So we've divided our entire healing journey. We've divided it up into different courses, and within each course, there's a whole lot of lessons. So these are short videos, about 15-minute videos that we send out each week. And so you can see there on that page some of the courses that we've already posted. And one is on how to hear God's voice for yourself. It's called God Speaks. And so that's where you can actually learn how to sit on Jesus' lap and have a two-way conversation with him. And then this is what our weekly lesson looks like. So this particular lesson, Kathy and I do them all together. And this is called, this particular one is how your will can be healed so you can become unstuck. And so this is an example of, we divided our entire program into courses and then short lessons. And the advantage of this is that you can do this at your own speed, and you can, there we go. You can do it at your own speed from anywhere, on any device, at any time. Like, it's incredibly convenient. You don't have to fly to where our seminar is. You don't have to keep up with the speed of our presentation. You can just do a 15-minute video whenever you want, from your backyard. And of course, it's a fraction of the cost of coming to a live event with us speaking. But what we have found is that the results are so much better because you can watch the video, do the homework assignment, talk to God about what you've just heard, and have time to process it and see how it affects your individual life. So it's so much more effective. And then you can stay in touch with us and ask us questions by email. And so the great thing is there's time to process and listen to God, because remember, head knowledge doesn't change anyone. But if you can learn something, then talk to God about how to apply it, it changes everything. So that's been a huge improvement in our teaching process. So you work at your own speed from anywhere that you have an internet connection, on any device, anytime. You can take time to process it, and you never fall behind and you never have to catch up because you're going at your own speed. And so another part of the program is that every month we do a live Q&A, much like this, except there's no presentation. We just answer questions that have been submitted to us. So once a month, Kathy and I together we get online, and the members of the Free Your Mind program, and there's actually a number of you who are attending tonight or are part of Free Your Mind. You can actually leave a comment of your experience with the Free Your Mind program. And
someone likes your mask.
well, that's right, because that was one of our COVID evenings. And so so we do that every once a month. And then, of course, you have unlimited access to all of our DVDs, because we've got like 20 DVDs teaching all kinds of our topics. And the interesting things about our DVDs, you can see what Kathy and I looked like 20 years ago. So it's like a time warp. Then also in part of the Free Your Mind program, we have an online community forum where you can leave questions and comments, and people can help each other. And we dive in and answer questions, and people comment and answer questions about each other. So it forms a healing community where we're all making progress together. And so now that all the live events are canceled, this is actually a perfect time to do online education and online transformation. So that's why we just thought we would launch this now that we're stuck, everyone's stuck at home, and that way you can make good use of the time. But it doesn't, we think that you can do our entire lesson and the homework in 30 minutes a week. So it's really not time consuming, because we want you to hear the information, but talk to God about it. That's the most important thing, okay? So we just think this is a perfect time. And also, we're gonna be starting a new course on Monday. On June the 1st, we're launching a new course, The 3 Keys to Overcoming Fear, Worry, and Anxiety. And we're doing that because, one, the pandemic's really accelerated that. And two, we think that fear, worry, and anxiety are the most common afflictions of the human mind. And of course, we think it is Satan's by far his favorite weapon against us, is to get us frightened and upset that way. So this program really is for anyone who's tired of worrying, and they've had enough anxiety, and they really no longer want to be controlled by fear. And so we're going to actually walk you through the 3 causes of fear, worry, and anxiety, and the 3 solutions to shut the access points off for that. So we'd love to have you come and join us. That's all included in the Free Your Mind program. There's no extra charge to the members. So here's what really makes our program different. Because you might be saying, well, you know, I've done programs, I've read books, and I've done DVDs. Well, here's what makes it different. Ours isn't based on giving you more knowledge. You know, we found that head knowledge doesn't change anybody. You know, it makes you more informed, but you haven't changed. And so what we want to do is we realize the only way you can have lasting change in how you think is when you've had an encounter with Jesus. And so that's what our purpose is we want to make it possible so you can be transformed, not just to feel better this week, but for life. If you have an encounter with Jesus, it'll change you forever. And so our job is we give you information, but then in the Free Your Mind program is, now talk to Jesus about what we've just talked about or what you've just learned. And so that's what makes our program different. And so to celebrate the launch of this new program, and it's also our 6-month anniversary this week of the Free Your Mind program, we have a special bonus. And this is what I promised you for those of you who stayed right to the end, okay? And so this special bonus is that if you want to get rid of pandemic brain, we are offering you a 15% lifetime discount on a new subscription if you want to subscribe to Free Your Mind now. And so that's your rate will never change. It will be locked in at the 15% off. And so it doesn't matter years from now if the rate goes up, it'll always be the same for you. So and so that is available right now. Now it's going to be offered to the public starting Monday. But for those of you who came to the webinar, you can actually do it this evening if you want. And so Kathy's going to put into
Trying to get off my screen. It's full screen and I can't get to the email.
Oh. Well, Kathy will put that into the chat box. So is there anything I can do to help you find it?
I have no idea. I can't.
Oh, Kathy just can't figure it out.
How do you get off the full screen? Here.
Well, Kathy's handing me her computer. There we go. So Kathy's going to post in the chat box the link to go to the Free Your Mind and the coupon code. You have to use a coupon code when you go to the joining box. You put in the coupon code, and that'll give you the discount. Okay, and so So you get early bird access to this discount because it won't be offered to the public until Monday. All right. So this would be a really good time to join up because we'd love to have you come and join us. And so this is where you go to members at members.drgrantmullen.com. So that's what Kathy's going to put in, and then use that coupon. Okay.
Someone typed in too soon. So here's the coupon code.
Yeah, there's the coupon code. And so we found that doing this program, you're going to make a lot of progress in your life at a fraction of the cost of an individual counseling appointment, which are very expensive. But this way you can slowly walk through the healing journey at a fraction of the cost. Also, too, there's a 30-day refund policy. So if you did sign up and it doesn't really suit you at all, if you cancel within 30 days, you get your money back. So there's really no risk to you at all. And we're really looking for people who are motivated and they really want to change and to hear from God. So head knowledge won't change you, but we want to connect you with God. So that's really everything I had to say. So just to sum up, to get rid of pandemic brain, you need to change how you think from ground level to God's level. And for immediate response, worship, climb up onto Jesus' lap, tell him how you're feeling, and listen to his response. But then for the rest of your life, you want to be transformed mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And we want to help you do that. And that's through the Free Your Mind program to shut off the access points mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. Okay? So that's really what we had planned for tonight. And so now I'm going to stop sharing and reappear. And so we can start taking questions. And so if Kathy can help me with some questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
It's primarily the only question was can't afford it.
So if you could type in any question you might have about what we've been talking about, or about the cost. The regular cost is $39 a month, so it's 15% off that, Canadian dollars. So we'd be happy to answer questions. We have a lot of information on, if you have a question about mood disorders and medications, a lot of that, I'm happy to answer that now if you do, but a lot of that information is on the website if you go into drgrantmullen.com resources. Oh, how do you keep slim in COVID? I'm eating and eating like crazy. Yes. Actually, that's very common. It's called the COVID-15 or the COVID-15.
Quarantine 15.
No, I heard COVID-15, so I'm not sure if that's pounds or kilos. And but it's because we're stuck at home and eating is a comfort food. It's because we eat to calm ourselves down. Also, we're bored, and so we find that eating is a pleasant, calming activity. And eating out used to be fun. Now we can't do that either.
So what do you do about it?
You have to eat less and exercise more.
Exercise more.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You have to eat less and exercise more. Or use carrots and celery. Oh, how do you know when you talk to God that it's him answering you? Well, that is the most important question. In fact, that's what our whole course is about. But there's a whole list of criteria that we teach you in the course. And one, is it scriptural? Two, is it compatible with his personality? Does it sound like him? Does it resonate with your spirit? Like, does it make sense to you? There's a whole lot of criteria, but also it's just something you practice and learn. The more you practice it, the more you get familiar with his voice. He says, my sheep know my voice. So the more time you spend with him in conversation, the more you get used to it. But it's something you have to learn and practice. Just, babies have to learn and practice English. So it's same with talking to God.
Someone was asking how they sign up. So I just click on the link.
Yeah, you just click on members.drgrantmullen.com.
And use the coupon code.
Yeah, use the coupon. Yeah, how do I email you? Yeah, well, you just email us directly if you're interested in the program. Yeah, I lack esteem going for walks and bike rides. Yes, right, because we're told that if you come into contact with any humans, it's dangerous. So, of course, the public health people says it's quite safe to go out as long as you stay, 4 kilometers away from every other person. But, so you have to be, 6 feet. So, but it's normal to be anxious now about going outside the house. But just realize that there are safe ways of doing it. Okay.
Someone likes the walk at home videos.
Yeah, we do the walk at home videos. If you want to move faster through the Free Your Mind program, you can actually work with me, and I have a premium version of the program, and you can actually work with me, and we do one-to-one counseling visits online and unlimited email support. So that's called the Free Your Mind Premium program. So if you want to actually work with me personally to move faster, then just contact me directly. Well, join the program, contact me directly. Yes, being stuck with some family members can be very awkward. Then you need God's supernatural grace. How do I cope with moods? Well, actually, we have a whole course on that in the Free Your Mind program called Your Moods Matter, and so that's so that we have 8 lessons on how do you deal with your moods and know how to treat them. Okay, now we missed questions from earlier. Just scroll back here.
How long is the coupon discount available?
Oh, till June 5. Okay, so it's very, very time limited. It's just till June the 5th. Oh, yes, there is a weekly video that's free, and that's on drgrantmullen.com. And so just go in there, and there's a subscription form on every page, or click on weekly videos.
There's a question from Jan Russell. Is the cost per month or per course? It takes me longer to do the courses.
Excellent question. No, it's per month, and you can go at your own speed and do as many or as few as you want. It all depends on what your schedule is. So it's a monthly fee to give you access to all the courses.
So sometimes they may be able to work faster.
Yeah, so you make it work faster, slower. It doesn't matter. It's just you go at your own speed. Anything else I'm missing?
I don't think so.
Okay. Oh, yes, certainly you can cancel anytime. If you don't want to continue, sure. I mean, you can be in it for as long as or as short as you want. Like there's no contract, it's just monthly. And so the first month is your trial, and then you can come and go as you please. Yeah, we enjoy the walk at home videos, right? Okay. Oh yeah, carry your hockey stick, right, to keep people at a distance. Yeah, but it also makes you look kind of threatening and dangerous. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, then I'll let you go. But this has been fun. But don't get Zoom fatigue.
Oh, there's someone struggling with, let's just like, there's a few questions here at the end. New ones. I'm feeling pressure to break some social, physical distancing, but I'm hoping for.
Oh, okay. That wasn't that there. Okay, so yeah, I mean, social pressure to break the government rules. Yes, and we're feeling that as well, because people are getting tired of the rules, and they're cutting all the corners. Yes, we are seeing that personally in friends of ours, and it's surprising, and so we're keeping to the rules because people are still dying of this, and this is still a legitimate threat medically. So that we are still keeping to the rules. So please don't be coerced into breaking the rules and putting yourself at risk. I'm speaking now as a physician.
I'm the person everyone calls for prayer. I pray and they feel better, but sometimes I feel such heaviness afterwards. Any tips for not curing people's feelings?
Yes. Well, yes. Kathy's an expert at this. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Kathy will answer this. She's an intercessor.
Whoa.
Okay, go ahead.
Our 2 microphones were clashing there for a minute. What I do when I do prayer ministry is literally after every time I pray with someone, I pray them off of me. In other words, I hand back to Jesus all of the stuff that I've been praying about with them. And I say, God, they're not mine to carry. These are for you. And they're yours to carry, and I ask that you would just take them back. You hold them, you look after them, and I ask you to Wash me of
anything that
might be
might be
trying to contaminate me.
And
it's a very simple,
but
when you
when you
picture
yourself handing
the
back the people that you've been praying for, it sure relieves you of carrying that weight.
Any other questions before we go?
Can you get the discount if you're already in?
No, it's for new members.
I struggle with journaling. Any tips?
I don't see that on my panel here. Journaling. Well, they don't pressure yourself with journaling. So, I mean, open your journal, but so if you just write 1 or 2 sentences, that's fine. But what's important is to be with God for quality time that you have carved out of your day. So it doesn't matter such a lot what you put on the paper. It's be with God, talk to him, and write down things that stick out in your mind after you've talked with him. Say, so you don't have to write pages. You could write 1 sentence, 1 word, if you feel that that's what God said to you. I have a hard time expressing my battle to non-mental health sufferers. Any tips to help them? Well, I mean, I suppose you could, well, basically, this is a medical problem that's just no different from diabetes or thyroid problems, and there are medications to give you back thought control. So if you explain it to them as this is a medical problem, and there are medicines that will clear my mind. So that will usually help. Oh, how many courses are offered in a month? Did we already answer that?
No.
Oh, they're all just there waiting for your, like it's like a library. They're all just sitting there, and you can help yourself at your own speed.
But we release new ones once a week.
Oh yeah, we release new lessons every week. So in other words, we keep building courses, but you can, there is one course we recommend you start with. After that, you can tour around according to your interests. Oh, Charlene, you just email me directly about the premium.
Mental health for kids.
Oh, mental health for kids. Well, they get mood disorders as well, and some of them do need medications. So I would go into the checklist of symptoms on the website and see if they have those symptoms, and if necessary, see a pediatrician about that, or a counselor, because kids get mental health problems too.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
You mute.
I just want to make a comment about mental health for kids, because I am a retired occupational therapist, and one of the Facebook pages that I follow is called the OT Toolbox. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because lately this particular person who hosts this site is talking about the emotional ways that children are expressing their frustrations during this pandemic, isolation, COVID stuff. And so if you would, if you are interested in trying to find more information about the OT, about how kids are coping, or how they might express their feelings during this time, then look up the Facebook page called OT Toolbox. And go scan through some of the previous posts, because she just recently posted one on anger and sadness and things like that. And it might be very helpful for you with grandchildren or who have kids of your own that are struggling with this.
Unmute. Pardon me. Tamara, I am so sympathetic to your question about all the parents who have to homeschool now, who that is not their gift. I don't know what to say. You are not alone. The parents are drowning over this homeschooling issue right now because they're forced to do it. I don't know what to suggest. You need supernatural help. Well, you can always email us if you have other questions. Email us directly, because I don't want to keep you any longer. It's been an hour. And so it's been wonderful having you join us virtually, but it's nice that we can actually see each other. And we've enjoyed it. And so we'll probably do this again sometime. And so if you'd like to be part of that, be sure to let us know. And how much is the premium course? Just email me directly. We can talk about that. Okay. Well then, thanks for coming, everyone. And so
someone just asked if it can be replayed. So
yes, we've recorded this, and so that we will send you a link to the recording. Okay, so that you can share it with other people, or watch it again. But for the people who, like the people in Europe, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, so they're going to get the recording. But so it's been wonderful having you, and we'd love to have you come to the Free Your Mind program, because then we can work together all the time. And so, in fact, with Free Your Mind, we do this every month. And so we'd love to have you. So thanks for coming, and thanks for participating. It's been a lot of fun. It's nice actually seeing you. So, bye.